Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lori Williams, and today I want to talk to you about how to set up healthy boundaries and how to stand by them. So I did a video a while ago talking about boundaries, like what they are, how to kind of set them up, but I've got a lot of questions on that, asking me to go deeper into kind of giving a step-by-step of how to set healthy boundaries. And so I decided I was going to do a full video on that as well. So that's what this is all about. Anyway, how to set healthy boundaries. First and foremost, your first step would definitely be get very clear on what it is that you want. What is it that you expect in your relationships? What are your non-negotiables? What is the one thing that if somebody did, it would be that's it. We're done. I need to separate myself from you. Obviously, that's a non-negotiable. Um, how much are you willing to take before it becomes an issue? Like when I talk people through how to build healthy boundaries, I talk to them about the volcanic effect. You want to try to avoid the volcanic effect. So what the volcanic effect is basically me as a human being not having clear boundaries. I'm going to just let things that somebody does like kind of build up and build up and build up and build up and build up until I explode. That's not healthy. That's not healthy for you. That's not healthy for them. That's not healthy for the relationship. So you want to avoid that, obviously. So being the very first step that you want to do to avoid that is to be very, very clear on what it is that's acceptable. What's acceptable in your life? What's absolutely not acceptable? What's like so not acceptable that even one time is way too many? And the truth of it is nobody can define this for you. Like if somebody, like even me, like back in the day, like my ex-husband, for an example, he cheated on me many, many, many times. And my part of that is like I have to own the fact that I allowed it. I forgave him. We moved on. But for who I am now, one is too many times. It's like a one and done. There's not a chance that I would ever let anybody get away with as much as he did. I learned a lot from that. Obviously, the self value and things like that. It runs a lot deeper now than it did back then. But that's the thing of it. We all change, we all grow, we all learn through our experiences. We learn the lessons that we need to learn in order to become who we are meant to be. So it's okay if the person who you used to be wasn't was more lenient than who you are now. You don't have to answer to anybody for the way you choose, for the boundaries you choose to have, and how strict those boundaries are. That's just the way it is for you. And if somebody else has a problem with that, that's their problem. I have a saying of that's a you problem, I'm not going to make it a me problem. That's exactly it. It's like that's them problem. That seems to be their problem. I'm not going to make it my issue at all. The other one thing that I do want to caution you on, because I think people kind of fall into this little gray area where they put as part of their non-negotiables, or what they want in relationships based on like their state of mind. So let's say, for an example, somebody with mental illness wants me, in order for me to be in their life, I have to act a certain way or be a certain way because of their mental illness. I'm all for, I mean, I suffer with mental illness for many years myself. So, I mean, I'm all for advocating for people with mental illness to have a voice. But do I think that that voice should tell other people, how they have to act around the person with mental health? No, I think that's where it kind of falls into a gray area. So I always tell people to ask the question when you look at your non negotiables, is this something that I can help by healing myself? Is this something that I am the one that has control over it? Because the truth of it is you can't make somebody else pay a consequence for something that they have no control over. If you're having a bad day one day and you decide that whatever it is that they did isn't all of a sudden acceptable, that's not healthy. That is you becoming toxic. And the whole idea of having boundaries is having healthy boundaries, not you be telling people what they can and can't do and who they have to be to show up in your life. Now, I mean, if they are constantly lying to you, if they're constantly using you, if they're constantly backstabbing you, belittling you, whatever the case may be. That's definitely boundary issues. But if they won't, buy you ice cream because you need ice cream and that's what your friends have to do. I mean, obviously, I'm like this is far fetched, but I'm trying to make it so that nobody can really associate with it. But like if they don't buy you ice cream, so like I can't be friends with you. I can't have you in my life because you don't buy me ice cream, and I don't need that kind of toxicity in my life. That's very extreme. That's not even a healthy boundary. That is you trying to control people. So there's a gray area to that. Just um, make sure that your boundaries are actually true things, like true boundaries, and not just you trying to control other people. because unfortunately a lot of people think they try to control people and call it boundaries, and I'm like, no, that's just more toxicity. You're just building more toxicity on the already toxicity you've got going on in your life, and that's not healthy for anyone either. So the next thing as far as setting healthy boundaries is don't be afraid to tell people what your boundaries are. My attitude is that I don't know how you need to be treated. I don't know how that person needs to be treated. I don't know, because I only know what is comfortable for me. And what may be comfortable for me may not be comfortable for you. It may not be comfortable for you. For me, I'll give you a prime example. It may be okay for you to call me at 10 o'clock at night. Whereas for me, if you're calling me at 10 o'clock at night, somebody better be dying or bleeding excessively. Like that has got to be an emergency if you're calling me that late at night. But to you, that might be totally okay. So I'm not gonna just like if you call me at 10 o'clock at night because you think that it's okay to do that, that's fine. I'm not gonna pick up the phone and like kind of chew your head off. I'm just gonna say, hey, you know what? I don't appreciate being called this late at night. I'd love to talk to you. I love hearing your voice. But can we do this in the morning? Can we do this at more of a decent time? And then just explain to you. If you want to call me, that's totally cool. I love talking to you. I love, the conversations that we have. We laugh, we joke, we have fun. But can we do it before and then set a time, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever's acceptable to you. The truth of it is we always approach our relationships based on our own things that like our own boundaries. But until we're told what other people's boundaries are, we approach all of our relationships as though we're coming from our own boundaries. So until you tell somebody what your boundaries are, they don't know. They only know what theirs are. And don't expect people to read your mind. Like nobody's gonna just show up in your life and just automatically know. So get comfortable with letting people know, hey, you know what? You've just crossed a boundary. Here it is. There you go. Done. It doesn't have to be something that you're angry about. The first time somebody crosses a boundary, I don't think it's necessarily fair for you to just like start like chewing their head off about it. That's really not fair. I think that once you get like let them know what the boundary is, at that point then they know. If they continue to cross it, then it becomes an issue. But the first time, just say, hey, you know what? I just don't really appreciate that, or I don't appreciate the way when you said this to me, or I don't appreciate the way that you talked to me when you said this. And you'd be like, you know what? I don't really like it. I don't like when you talk to me like that, or I don't like when you treat me this way. Why? I don't know when in our society that became so taboo to say, hey, this is the way I prefer to be treated. This is how I need you to show up in my life if you want to be in my life, and have it be okay. I've had so many relationships literally where I tell them what my boundaries are and they blow up at me, and I was like, okay, well apparently that was never meant to be a relationship anyway. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that that's not gonna happen, but unfortunately those people, the only people that are not going to like you having boundaries are the people that are the type of people that continually cross those boundaries. Those are the only ones that will ever have an issue with it. Anybody that actually wants to be part of your life, anybody that truly has respect and love for you, is going to take those boundaries and like hold on to them with all their might and be like, you know what, this is totally doable. Your boundaries should never be anything that's like super super crazy, like like you're, I don't know. I can't even think of anything off the top of my head right now, but it's like you don't want it to be super crazy. It needs to be obtainable. Honestly, I always tell people, think about what it is that you bring to the table. What is it that you bring to the table as far as friendship? What is it that you bring to the table as far as honesty and integrity? And if you can bring that, then you have the right to expect it. But if you can't even show up in that way, then you don't have the right to ask that from anybody else. You don't have the right to ask for honesty if you're going to sit there and lie to your friend time and time again. So it's that's how I teach people and how I've set my own boundaries is how is it that I show up? What is it that I can offer into my relationships? And if I can offer that, then obviously, like it's important to me because that's who I am. Honesty and integrity, all those things are very like ground floor, like foundation type stuff that's important to me. And if somebody can't show up with honesty and integrity in my life, I really have to start to question how much I actually need that person in my life. Luckily, the universe is actually really good at showing us who's meant to be in our life and who's not, and even goes as far as removing the people that aren't meant to be in our life. So that's actually a bonus too. So yeah, those are pretty much the two steps. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big ordeal. It just, I think a lot of people over analyze and they overthink. They try to make a big, huge process of setting these boundaries that it doesn't have to be. Now, as far as standing by them, like I said, first and foremost, let people know you have them. If they've crossed the boundary, if you think they're going to cross the boundary, let them know, hey, this is the way I expect you to show up in the relationship. Obviously, wording it like that seems kind of odd. So I would just say, like after somebody has crossed the boundary, be like, you know what, when you said this to me or you did this or whatever the case was, and I even go as far as explaining why it is a boundary. It's like, I would never like say if honesty is and you've caught one of your friends in a lie, is, like just tell them I value honesty in my life and I give you honesty, therefore I would value honesty from you. Um, but after that, that's where things get, to me, that's when things get real. Like shit gets real after the first time. After the first time, they now no longer have an excuse or a reason for disrespecting your boundaries. At that point, they're just flat out disrespecting. So what you want to do after the first time of letting them know, then they know. The second time, this is 100%. It's 100% up to you, and it's 100% up to or dependent on how severe the boundary is. Like if it's 100% non-negotiable, um, like let's say for an example, like cheating for an example, if that's 100% non-negotiable to you and somebody cheats on you, like it's a one and done, then stick by that. They've crossed that boundary and sorry, but can't take it back. You made your choice and now I've made mine. So, and stand by that. But if it's something like maybe, like a little bit of a lie or something that you can kind of let it go the first time and give somebody a second chance, then by all means do that as well. So I don't think there's any really one hard and fast rule across the board of how to stand by your boundaries, but I honestly just believe that to me anyway, when I get to a point where by someone's actions, what they've done or what they've said, when it starts like eating at me constantly, I have to say something. Because again, that volcanic thing that we were talking about earlier, you're trying to avoid that. If it's renting space in your heart, if you're constantly thinking about it, so it's renting space in your head, then there's something that needs to be said. You need to at some point, give them the heads up of, hey, you know what, if you cross this boundary again, I don't see our relationship working. And that's typically how I approach. Like if I've forgiven them the second time and told them, made it very clear of what the boundary was, and the second time, like if this happens again, I'm sorry, but at that point, you've now showed me exactly what you think of our relationship, and I can't be the only one in this relationship valuing us as a relationship. Therefore, if you do this again, I'm going to have to walk away from this friendship because as far as I'm concerned, it's one sided. And then again, obviously, whatever it is that you say at that point, you have to stand by. If they cross that boundary a third time and you've told them that you're going to end the relationship, if it happens again, you need to follow through with that. You need to be able to make sure that you're standing in your own power. You need to make sure that you are very much in control of what's happening in your life. You can't control people, but you can control how you respond to them. And if you keep forgiving them, they're going to keep crossing that boundary. It's one thing to have boundaries and tell people that you have boundaries, but if you continue to let people, you have to have an endpoint. You have to have that endpoint because you can sit there and tell somebody day in and day out, I have boundaries, I have boundaries, I have boundaries, and you better respect them, you better respect them, you better respect them. But at the end of the day, if they can cross that boundary 10 times and nothing is done, you're not stopping them from doing it. There's no issue. They're not losing out on anything. That's what it comes down to. So they're going to continue to cross that boundary. The truth of it is, I believe that everybody should have boundaries for the sake of the fact it makes it very clear of who's meant to be in your life and who's not. Like I said, the only people that will have issues with you having boundaries are the ones that have continually crossed them. It's not always easy to lose people, but it's also a lot harder to keep people that aren't meant to be in your life, and try to force relationships. It's a lot harder to do that than it is to lose them. So definitely, I mean, you can do whatever you want with your boundaries. Definitely, though, make sure. I personally, I have a First time they get a warning unless it's something like really severe. Second time I'll be like, hey, you know what? We've already had this discussion once. If I'm not going to have this conversation a third time, like this is the second time, it won't be happening a third time. I will be ending the relationship or at the very least putting distance between us. And then the third time, if it happens, it's just like a three strikes and you're out kind of thing. And the truth of it is you won't even have to have that first conversation with people that are actually value you. People that actually value you and respect you are going to automatically value and respect you. They're not going to need boundaries. They don't even have to know what your boundaries are. And the truth of it is in having the universe clear away the people that aren't meant to be in your life, because they constantly cross your boundaries, it allows people that are meant to be in your life to come in, and that's a hell of a lot better. It's definitely a much easier way to live, is to have people that just automatically respect you and that you automatically respect them. The relationships are so much easier. Nothing's forced, nothing's fake, nothing. There's no arguing, there's no drama. It's just natural and it's easy, and that's the way relationships should be. All right, that is it for this video. I'll see you guys back here next time. Until then, take care. Bye for now.